The tariff tsunami, what Trump actually signed on April 2nd, part 3 of 7 in a series on Trump's Liberation Day. On April 2nd, the speeches ended and the pens came out. The Rose Garden ceremony wasn't just theater, it was execution. By sundown, President Trump had signed one of the most aggressive, sweeping tariff packages in modern United States history. This wasn't a press cycle stunt. This was policy, live, binding, and locked in. And it didn't wait. The first wave of tariffs hit at midnight. Forget the slogans, forget the flags. Let's talk about what actually changed. Trump's executive order rolled out a 10% blanket tariff on virtually every product entering the United States. That's not a typo. Everything, from French wine to Bangladeshi textiles, got tagged unless specifically exempted. The idea was simple. If you don't build it here, you're paying to sell it here. This was the new default setting for America's trade policy. No more endless carve-outs, no more strategic partnerships that somehow only benefited the other side. If a country wanted a deal, they'd have to earn it by dropping their own tariffs. Trump called it reciprocity. But the 10% wasn't the main event. That was just the opening bid. The real teeth came from the reciprocal tariff framework, a new set of country-specific import taxes designed to mirror what each nation imposes on American goods. Trump's method, kind of reciprocal, meaning we charge about half of what they charge us. That math was drawn straight from the charts Trump held up in the Rose Garden. According to his administration, China imposes an effective 67% burden on United States products. The European Union hits American goods with an average of 39%. India, Brazil, South Korea, and others were all listed with similar figures. Trump's response was proportionate. China gets hit with 34% tariffs. The European Union faces 20%. Everyone else was scaled proportionally to match what one aide privately called their theft index. These figures weren't just about official tariffs. They included value-added taxes, regulatory barriers, and border fees. Every friction point an American company faces overseas. From the American standpoint, it doesn't matter what you call those layers. They still add up to lost competitiveness. Trump didn't try to itemize the wound. He named the number and hit back. They charge us, we charge them, can't get any simpler than that. Then came the sector strikes, laser-focused tariffs aimed at strategic industries. The biggest one was a 25% tariff on all foreign-made automobiles and trucks, effective immediately. Midnight, April 3rd, no ceremony, no grace period. That hits Europe, Japan, and South Korea square in the engine block. Trump framed it as punishment for decades of dumping cars into the United States while blocking ours with technicalities and taxes. If you want to sell to American drivers, you better employ American workers. The White House hinted at possible carve-outs under the United States-Mexico-Canada agreement, but those were fuzzy. The message was clear: build in Detroit or pay the toll. Also included were broader tariffs on core materials. Steel and aluminum saw the return and expansion of Trump's 2018 policies, 25% across the board with no exemptions. Lumber and copper were added with new tariffs aimed at reviving raw material industries for construction, manufacturing, and domestic infrastructure. Then came the shocker: pharmaceuticals, even medicine got tariffed. But Trump made the case. Foreign governments subsidize drugs and impose price controls, then turn around and dump those products into the United States for profit. The pharma tariffs, targeting generics from India and China, were framed as a push for domestic drug manufacturing, especially after COVID exposed our supply chain weakness. Critics howled, pharma lobbyists melted down, but Trump stood firm. Why should China make your antibiotics? Trump's economic team didn't just hit sectors, they used tariffs as leverage in active conflicts. China got a bonus 20% hit for its role in fentanyl trafficking. Venezuela got boxed out by targeting nations that import Maduro's oil, a 25% penalty on those countries aimed at undercutting Venezuela's value to China and India. Canada and Mexico were left under the older 25% tariff regime, but with a catch. If Canada or Mexico strikes a new trade deal, the 25% can be lifted, but then the new 10% baseline kicks in. Trump's not just imposing tariffs, he's setting traps policy pressure points to extract maximum leverage. And so, how did he do it? Legally, Trump invoked two major authorities. Section 301 of the Trade Act of 1974 allows the president to impose tariffs in response to unfair trade practices. Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act of 1962 allows tariffs on goods deemed threats to national security. That's how he justified the auto tariffs, the steel protections, and even the pharma moves in Congress. They gave him that power decades ago and never took it back. These weren't Trump tariffs. They were tariffs enabled by congressional abdication. He just used the tools they handed him, and it all began instantly. Tariffs on cars hit at midnight, steel, aluminum, and raw materials live, China-specific retaliations locked in, pharma rules kick in with a short ramp-up period, but the machinery is already in motion. Countries looking for exemptions, the message was simple: drop your tariffs, build in America, or pay up. This wasn't a trial balloon, it was a trade war airstrike. And the economic map of the world shifted by the end of the day. Next up in the series, who got targeted and why? Article 4 breaks down the Dirty 15 and how Trump turned trade imbalances into political enemies.